Oh shit. Okay. Oh shit. Let's try this again, chat. Round 2. Nope, it is still Dragon Bite. You know what I think it is? I think it has something to do with the recording. That's better. Alright, it doesn't want to record this episode apparently, so... Welcome back, chat. Welcome to Therapy Thursday. We gotta wait for Asteria to come in here. It's an ordeal, chat. Sorry. I know it looks better on stream, but I'm trying to get the recording to go. Yeah, I'm gonna hit the button again, but as soon as that happens, it looks like, yeah, everything goes robot mode. It's not gonna do it. I don't know what's going to happen. I think something got updated and just ruined that. So sorry if you're watching this live. Good for you. You get to see everything. If you want to watch this on YouTube, it's not going to happen because it's not going to be there. Oh well. All right, let's see if we can get her in here. All right, I have to switch my channels. Okay, it's safe to come back in.
I'm just staying here for just a second, just to kind of do the verbal run through for Jason.
Okay.
But unless you want to kind of guide him through it over there.
Oh well, we're already like live right now, so everybody can hear you.
Oh well, then never mind. I'm going over there.
All right, she's here. So it looks like the problem is that the it doesn't want to record it. As soon as I hit record, it starts tanking.
Oh, okay. So maybe this is just one that's not recorded?
Yeah, this one's not going to be recorded, because I even tried hitting the button again. I stopped it and then restarted it, and as soon as I hit start, it just freezes.
Well, freaking, okay, then not sucks to suck, YouTube.
Yep, sucks for them. See, this is why I keep telling people to come over to Twitch, because you actually get to see everything. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's finally get this thing going. Are you still working with your friend?
I'm trying to get the details. Yeah, I think that he'll be in here as soon as he can. So anyway, chat, we're having a special guest.
Yay!
It's another clinician.
Yay! All right, first thing, do your little stuff, get it out of the way.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say this on behalf of both of us once he gets here. So my name is Dysphoria. I do not know what the name that my friend is going to be going by, so I'm going to go ahead and wait until he's here to share that. We are both associate marriage and family therapists that work in the state of California, and we are both have trauma backgrounds, so our dominant population is trauma right now. He can introduce more of his backgrounds when he gets here. I'll go ahead and say mine. I have a background in trauma. I also have a focus in evidence-based approaches, an array of evidence-based approaches. So I also do things such as like internal family systems, which my friend is getting trained in right now. I am not trained, but I do personal research, so listen more to him about it. I also have a background for substance, dissociative disorders, and so forth. And I'm also EMDR trained, which is a type of trauma treatment that focuses on bilateral stimulation to assist in kind of healing the nervous system, and that stored and the way that the trauma is stored in the system. I like to come on here with Kilted, not only just to talk to Kilted, because that's just lovely, and we kind of use this platform to also give back to the community, because we understand that resources are hard to get to right now. Times are really tough. It's really hard to be a human right now. So we like to use this space to talk about mental health, discuss general topics related to mental health, ones that I'm more comfortable talking about. I will discuss. Ones I won't be, I will go ahead and hold that boundary. And then just again, kind of not just that, but also my boundaries is that because I know this is an open platform, I do not, and because I have protected classes that I work with, meaning populations that I do have to do reporting with if they're my client. Just because of the ethics of it, I do not discuss. I don't overall. I do not do any diagnosing here. That's just a no here. But especially, I do not discuss about suicide, especially with minors. Because again, I understand that suicide is a very common concept when it comes to being a human, and it can get really tricky and dicey for folks under the age of 18. So just for safety purposes, I just do not, and ethical purposes, I just do not discuss that. So feel free to go into the chat with general topics, questions. I'll go ahead and answer what I feel comfortable with answering. My friend will also discuss what he's comfortable with discussing once he gets here. Other than that, Hilton and I will just kind of talk about various topics related to things going on with him, things going on with me. I'll apply some mental health related to it. He'll ask us questions, and we'll always pause for any questions that come up in the chat.
Yes. Thank you. Combo says, I forgot about this. I can download the VOD off Twitch later and try to upload it that way. So, oof, we can give that a shot. And Secret Ducky is back. Hi, Ducky. Hi.
Hello, Secret Ducky. Welcome back.
All right. How are you?
That's a great question.
Like I am.
I think I am statements are always fantastic. It's a fantastic skill. I'm better. I feel a lot more peaceful. I realized a lot of what I was feeling discomfort was like this pressure that I was putting on myself, so I had to take responsibility for that. I very much kind of was holding myself to a very high expectation. A lot of things came up in in my trauma session this past Friday. Shout out to my therapist, because she knows what's up. And overall, I just feel good. I feel pretty satisfied with life right now. I think I need kind of some support socially, because there's just things related to social dynamics that are just difficult for me to wrap my head around.
Did you say you need support?
Yeah, like I need support because I feel that I have been exposed to environments with very like logical and critically thinking folks that I just don't sometimes know how to talk as a person my age. Like, it is socially, it is very impactful to know as much as the knowledge that I have, and then relate to people my age.
I know how you feel.
And it feels kind of isolating sometimes, because I really want connection with like in a friendship kind of way. And I'm just like, I don't relate. I don't find these things fun. I kind of like, hello, fellow youth.
Hello, those of my age.
What is the 411? As if anyone does 411 anymore.
I know, right? What do you think of that America Online?
Dial up? That's new. So yeah, that's kind of where I am right now. Other than that, I'm really happy where I am with my health recently. I was very reflective. Today it was really interesting. It just came up for me that I really see, like in a very real way, the change I have had with my relationship with food, which is something I was actively trying to do with my change towards my health. Which that's really nice, because that's a goal I really wanted to do, and it's kind of like sticking. So that's really good. My nails are long, and it's like, why does that matter? It matters because I've like kind of lived with anxiety my whole life, and how does that reflect it? I like my way to manage it. I bite my nails. Like I bit my nails practically my whole life.
Right.
So the fact that my nails are long right now, it's like, oh, this is a reflection of I'm doing better with my anxiety.
Yeah.
And I'm really still enjoying playing Magic, and I'm also playing video games. And this is also great because when I get really stuck in work mode, I kind of forget to like unwind and do like fun stuff. So the fact that I am doing that and I'm watching anime again, which is nice. These are all things that are like giving me enjoyment. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
That's good.
Yeah.
Speaking of video games, I got my Binding of Isaac shirt on.
Oh, do you?
Yep. I know Combo has the same shirt. So it's one where he's riding like a little like stick horse, but and it's like all cute looking, but also kind of disturbing at the same time. I love it.
Oh, I do like the stick horse.
Yeah. Let's see. How am I? I guess I'm okay. Like the social side that I've been, or social isolation that I've been kind of dealing with, that's been falling away just due to school, you know, being around people. So
well, does that feel nice?
Yes. I'm not sitting here freaking always just like horribly in a bad mood. I mean, I have my moments, but it's not weeks on end, like 24/7. Now it's more like just isolated to the weekends, but whatever. I did have a bit of a situation this week with work.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't there. So yesterday we were supposed to have a staff meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember if we discussed it last week, that the staff meeting was coming up and they were saying, hey, you know, we'll see you at the staff meeting. It's on Wednesday. And I told them, I've told you guys every week I'm in class Mondays and Wednesdays. I'm not at work. So they had the staff meeting yesterday, and I had somebody at work kind of report back to me what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And some interesting stuff happened. So my engineer, he had to go to the meeting, which he has not really shown up to the office since COVID started. He showed up once just to get in, get out really quick.
Wait, do you mind if I jump in real quick? And they give you crap for like going to school?
Yes. Isn't
okay,
great?
I just wanted to be clear.
And so basically the long and short of what happened with him is they were in this meeting. Unburdened Weave, thank you for the follow. What they said to him was, you know, hey, we're trying to get these projects and we need you to, you know, cut cost on these designs. And he said, well, I'm doing my best. Like, this is as cheap as we can make this stuff. And they said, oh, well, just, you know, fudge the numbers, make it, you know, something like this, you know, just change some numbers around so it could be cheaper, even if it like kind of goes outside of the building codes. And he just straight up said, if you guys are going to push me to do that, then I don't belong in this industry anymore. And he said, I will quit right now.
Oh,
and everyone was like,
wow.
whoa, like, because they cannot afford to lose him. And so I figured that out. And then I also figured out that my name had come up very briefly, but they said, oh, you know, we haven't heard Kilted complain about being overloaded with work. So that means, so he's not complaining and being upset. That means he doesn't have enough work.
That is an interesting correlation of thought.
Yes. So basically they said he's not being pissed off right now, so we need to make sure we piss him off. That's what that was. We need to bring in more work so he's overstressed. Yes, because they said he's not complaining, which means he's not working hard enough. And I'm sitting there thinking, you know, what do I live in the fucking Twilight Zone? What is this?
Well, the thing that's really heartbreaking about that mentality is that is a mentality that is commonly like built upon in Western civilization. Again, that's all I could speak on.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's such a promotion of like run into the ground. However, again, I'm going to speak very briefly about this because again, I don't know like much more about other cultures, so I'm only going to say so much of what my knowledge has to keep it like within comfort zone of that. I think about what was informed to me about what it looks like for folks in other like collective cultures. So again, the difference between individualist and collective.
Mm-hmm.
With collective cultures is that like I know that there's some collective cultures that if they see you like sleeping at your desk
Mm-hmm.
by chance, that they congratulate it as a reflection of hard work rather than where other cultures would say that is laziness.
Right.
Which is very interesting in my perspective. However, again, what you shared with me right now, what came to mind was this concept that was talked about by, again, I'm going to talk about this person all the time. Their name is Gabor Mate.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about like when people, or I forgot who he was interviewing. It was another like big person in psychology world. I think it was Peter Levine,
Mm-hmm.
but I could be wrong. Anyway, the whole point being is this. They said, well, how do you manage like anxiety, or like how do you manage like healthy mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, okay, well, all you have to do is live in you have to not be stressed. You need to have a job that doesn't have you work too much. You have to live in like health or like healthy air quality environments where people aren't overlapped or like stacked on each other, and that you need to have plenty of vacations and breaks.
Right.
That in a very common, much more majority space for people in Western civilization does not exist.
Yes.
Right? That just does not exist. And many a times the fault because again, it's just a faulty system. That's just my opinion, but I could have this here because I'm not working, so fuck you. That's just for the chat. Is that because of that, many times individuals will then adopt shame and guilt in order to manage a sense of control as a result of that, because that's very out of control. Like the fact is your job says because you're not freaking out and stressing out, at least observably to them, that means you need to be given more work.
Yes.
Because they want your mentality run into the ground, which doesn't even actually, at least in my perspective, make sense. Because if you're not ran into the ground, that means you can give better quality work.
Yes.
That's just my thoughts.
Oh, okay. I thought we'd continue with that. So
I just wanted to pause there because I can keep going. So I wanted to give you that space too.
Gotcha. Yeah, it was just something that kind of threw me. I got thrown off when I heard that. Just sitting there thinking, wow. When you think they can't get more toxic, no. Yeah, it can go deeper.
The sky's the limit.
Let's see what else happened. Nothing has like been bothering me this week. We had again my physics professor, third day in a row, taught us literally 0 things, so that's been kind of frustrating. And I found out yesterday, well, I think I mentioned this before, I have developed a reputation at that school that I am completely oblivious to.
Yeah?
Yeah, I apparently, according to Eggy, I was talking to her because when I leave my physics class, she's going into that same classroom because I guess, our class leaves, then her class goes in. And so we see each other for about 10-15 minutes during that switchover time. And so we're walking out and she said something to one of my classmates. She's like, oh, hey, blah, blah, blah. And she said, oh, him and I are in class together, a different class. And I said, oh, okay, cool. And he was in my class 2 semesters ago in my calculus class. And so I know who he is. I just don't talk to him. And she's like, oh, yeah, that guy, he's really scared of you. I was like, what? She's like, oh, yeah, he's terrified of you. I said, well, why? She's like, I don't know. I asked him, and he said it's because, I would go to class, I'd wear my kilt, I'd have like my Spartan race shirt on, and I'm just a big dude. And he's just said, oh, man, like, I don't know, he's scared. I don't want to, like, piss him off or something. He looks like he can beat the shit out of me. I'm like, what kind of, like I've never been mean to anybody. Okay, well, I can't say that, but you know what I mean. I was going to say. I crack jokes that are inappropriate, but I've never like say anything bad, especially to this guy. I've like talked to him before, and it was kind of funny because later that day I was in the tutoring center, and I was talking to one of the tutors, and I was sitting at a table. He had to talk to a tutor also, so he came and sat at the same table. So we both get our help, and I look over, and I was like, so I heard you're scared of me. What's that all about? He's like,
oh my god, you did know. Actually, that's exactly what you did.
That's exactly how I do. And he's like, I don't know, man, you're just like big and like freaking like just intimidating. I was like, am I really? I was like, what did I do? He's just like, I don't know, you're just very intimidating. I was like,
tall.
I guess. I mean, I am like, you know, I wouldn't say jacked, but I'm a bigger dude. And he's just like, man, just like the way you dress and the way you walk around, it's like you freaking own this place. I was like, yeah, like I kind of do, but I don't know. It was just kind of funny, but you know, he ended up sitting there for like a few hours. I was just shooting the shit with him while we were doing work, so everything's probably fine now. But it's just, I'm just sitting there because I'm starting to hear stories from people, and people are like, "Oh yeah, I know you. You're this guy." I was like, and I asked, "Are you in my class? Have you been in my class before?" They're like, "No." I was like, "How do you know of me?" And it's like, a lot of people know of you. I'm like, "What? Huh?" I was like, I've never seen these people in my life, or if I have, I've just never acknowledged them, and apparently I have a reputation. It's not good or bad, it's just people know of me just because of my presence.
Well,
they'd be like, oh, you know that guy kilted? They'd be like, who? Like, you know the big dude with the kilt? They're like, oh yeah, we know him. I'm like,
dude,
oh, okay.
Everyone knows you as the one with the kilt.
Yeah, the
like,
big guy on campus.
Literally, even with my coworkers, they literally will say, like, I'm like, oh, I'm talking about, like, oh, let me talk about my brothers, blah blah blah, and they're all like, actually, I can't say them, but they said the one with the kilt or the one without the kilt, and I was like, the one with the kilt, and they're like, ah, okay, got it.
I just think that's funny though. It's just I'm sitting, I was like, I don't know if I should be scared or proud of that or what.
Just to jump in real quick, my friend on here, they're gonna probably be jumping in soon. Again, they don't have to. I'm gonna. They're kind of just talking, or they could just listen, whatever. But they could also just jump in if they're watching on the stream and just jump in the chat if they like.
Yeah, if they like it.
But anyway, they're Unburdened Weeb. That's them.
Wait, they're what?
Unburdened Weeb.
Oh, that's their name. I thought you said they're on burning weed. I was like, what?
Yes, in these times.
I was like, don't burn your weed.
Like, don't. I mean, wait. I mean, I guess so.
I mean, yeah, kind of. I mean, utilize it properly.
Yeah,
and don't forget, chat. Anybody who's just passing through, if you have any mental health questions or you'd like to discuss a topic or you're feeling a certain way or you got something go on, drop it in chat and we will discuss it. All right, so go ahead.
But what was I gonna say? How do you feel about that? Like, that's your, like, I know this is something a very, like, how do I say this? Growing up, because you've been wearing the kilt for so long, right? Like, so long.
Long enough, yeah.
Yeah, that, I was gonna say, like, I think there's, no, never mind. I was thinking back to a photo, like, you, me, the eldest, and our nephew were in, when, like, our nephew was very young. But I think you're wearing shorts in that picture. Anyway, like, I remember talking about this with the eldest, where, like, hey, and like with you creating like your whole brand related to it. And it's just like, oh, it's like, why that? And it's like, yeah, but it's niche enough here in, like, you know, the United States, where it's like it would definitely contribute to a person standing out, right?
Yes.
And so if that's the possibility of what you're doing, with you being associated with that, I guess, first of all, separate from being big and scary, that's a separate thing. We'll get to that in a second.
It's funny. Like, I used to be big and scary in a not positive way, and now it's more of a positive way.
Oh, that's what I want to check in, because I was like, you that's definitely changed. that's definitely changed. So, yeah, I wanted to, because at one point, in all transparency, you were scary. Like the tolerance for your anger was much less at one point. So, as a side note, does Unburdened Weeb have access to this voice channel?
I don't think so. Tell him to jump back in the regular general chat. I saw him jump in there for a moment. If he jumps back in there, I could probably like click on him and give him access. Yeah, I used to, like, because before people were like, that guy's big and creepy, but that's because I was fat and everyone just said I looked, or I was big and scary because I was fat and creepy, was what people said, just because the way I looked. And then all I did was lose 85 pounds, and now I'm big and scary because I'm just intimidatingly just like in shape, and you know, my presence is well known in a room.
Also, but do you have a sense of like like correlated to how you present yourself now?
What do you mean?
Meaning like you know, when people misidentify you, like that can have like an impact. Like I'll speak on behalf of myself, right? At one point, like being like when people misidentified me in the sense of like there are qualities about me they associate with me that I didn't agree with, I would feel kind of upset of like, oh dang, like that's what you really think me as, right? Or like, and I'm like, damn, like, and I'm like, what am I doing to contribute to that idea of myself, right?
Right.
And I've also had it where there's qualities people thought of me, and I'm like, well, yeah, those are solid qualities of myself. Like, and I'm happy that you correlate that with me. The qualities and the way people perceive you with the kilt, like, is that something you find like pride in? That's kind of where I'm getting at.
A bit. I mean,
oh, he's there whenever.
Yeah, I sent him a friend request.
Okay. Let me yeah, because again, I know, if I'm not mistaken, at one point the correlation and the relationship between you and the kilt kind of like shifted. I could be wrong, please correct me if I'm wrong, because of the type of population that kept on jumping into your, you know, where people of kilt background would like when you'd add them into your like that
into the Facebook group.
Like, yeah, into the Facebook group. And that was like kind of creating and changing like the stigma or the feelings toward it at one point.
Gotcha. Hold on. He's asking if he's connected to the thing. Sorry, chat. Give us one moment. Again, chat, if you have any mental health questions, feel free to drop them in and we'll discuss them.
I really like when people ask about trauma. What is trauma last week? I love that. I love that question so much because there's such a misunderstanding about it. It's like, anyway.
Yeah.
But I also love asking questions or answering questions of like, hey, this kind of like minute, everyday, bothersome thing is coming up for me right now. What do you think I should do?
Wait, what's coming up?
Like, if people ask questions of like, hey, there's this minute, like, bothersome thing coming up for me right now. What are your thoughts on it? It's also something you could bring up into the chat as well.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. I'm excited for if Unburdened Weeb can join.
Yeah, I sent him an invite twice into here, so
I'm just gonna call on him on here Weeb.
Yeah, just call him Weeb.
I'm like, hey, Weeb.
Yeah, but going back to like the reputation thing, I mean, I think like the reputation I'm holding now is better because I think it's funnier. Because it's more intriguing. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, so I'd rather be known as like the big scary looking guy that is just not scary, but like intimidating guy, rather than the creepy dude. Like, you know, because people would used to just get uncomfortable around me, even when I didn't say anything, just because the way I looked. And now it's in a different fashion, if you know what I mean.
Right. Exactly. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, because you remember long ago, people were like, "Oh, this guy looks like he's freaking like a rapist and shit." They would say that all the fucking time.
That one was weird. I don't understand. Like, it's statements like that I'm very uncomfortable with. I mean, obviously, there's like stigmas and shit related to it and everything, but more so of like, how do I say this? There's so many, like, okay, I want to just say this angle. I have one of the populations I was working with commonly had me working with folks that had engaged in sexual assault, right? And whether they're registered or not, right? Which again, that's not my job to go do all that. So before anyone's like, "Oh, why didn't you?" That's not my job. Okay. So I'm like, and because of HIPAA, I definitely can't. So the thing is, when there's statements like, "Oh, they look like insert this," right? This any kind of like box, I can tell you so many folks don't fit the box, right? And not only is that impactful or hurtful for those that sorry, I'm getting messages from Weeb. Not only am I getting not only does that impact and place these boxes so that people that may look like that start to get put into, but it also significantly impacts like reporting of people doing things like this.
Yeah.
And that can be so impactful in itself. Which is like acts. Because then when people are like, "Oh, there's not research that shows it's like, yeah, because society plays a role in how freaking research is conducted, whether they know or they understand that or not.
Yeah, I mean, because just like calling people out like that without like knowing them that can lead to a lot of problems. Because that was one big one with when the ex said that one thing to me, and it set me off just because I was like, you saying that out loud can literally get me thrown in jail then murdered. With the whole incident at the concert.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I know. That was absolutely and completely like that's all I gotta say, just I still have such a awful feeling about all that. Truly.
Yeah. Okay, there, he's in. Also, let's see. Secret Ducky says, I learned today about rejection sensitive dysphoria, which is kind of alongside the lines of the big and little T trauma. Can you talk more on that and what is an effective method of therapy for it?
Rejection sensitivity dysphoria, is that what they're talking about?
Yes.
I want to check in with, well, it's a good thing that Weeb is here because I can talk about it. I think he's muted, which is fine. Like, if he wants to talk about it, he doesn't have to. But if I'm not mistaken, rejection sensitivity dysphoria is when an individual experiences like psychosomatic impact when they're given signals that are similar to or associated with like failure or rejection, if I'm not mistaken. And
you're right.
Oh, see, fantastic. So I'm right. Huzzah, thank you. everyone, this is Weeb, this is everyone. This is also an associate marriage and family therapist. Just wanted to clarify. And no, he will not be doing diagnoses. That's pretty much, like, again, we're just going to keep it very general.
All right, real quick, Weeb, do you want to just let everybody know your qualifications?
Yeah, so I am
Asteria.
Says over here, I'm an associate marriage and family therapist. I work with my friend, and I'm just, supporting my friend today. So just helping out whenever it's coming up today. So.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We work in the trauma field.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We definitely both work in trauma.
And is there any way you can get a little bit closer to your microphone?
Yes. Is this better?
Yeah, just get as close as you can. Have it right up to your face.
Okay.
Right to your face.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Will do.
Okay.
So anyway, so yeah, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, so as confirmed by we, which definitely helps, is that again the body experiences such a level of like there's just ultimately an actual somatic response to the body that is experienced when this rejection and anything that similarly looks like that rejection happened. So if I'm also not mistaken, again, please correct me if I'm wrong, I think that there's certain diagnoses that may be more prone or may be more exposed to the possibility of having this. And I can see it being obviously trauma-based. So I'm trying to think about how to kind of go a little bit into this to the extent of how much I know. Because there's going to be a difference between rejection sensitivity and rejection sensitivity dysphoria.
What's the difference?
The difference is that there can be folks that, due to life experiences, trauma, and so forth, their systems may be like, when I say systems, I can be talking about just like the body, especially the mind. It can kind of encode in your brain and being mindful, even looking out or even seeking sometimes rejection. So it may it may have just a very low tolerance, a significantly low tolerance, or just an impacted tolerance to rejection. The dysphoria piece of it is how it impacts the body, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like you can feel upset with rejection sensitivity and it could be hurtful, but with the dysphoria is that it can feel physically painful. Is there anything else that I'm missing by chance, Weeb?
No, and I think, without trying to discuss diagnosis, like that chronic invalidation, kind of like that sense of kind of the break of the attachment because of the rejection and how intense.
Yeah. That's also a very valid piece to it. This is, again, I know that we talk about attachment a lot in here. I won't speak on behalf of we, but so much I'll say on mine is that I love, and I think that a lot of trauma is based in attachment and attachment theory. And in that, there's another important piece I think that goes into mental health as to, and again, this challenges the idea and the stigmas that like mental health isn't important, because that is something that comes up, especially in our society, or they downplay it or they minimize it and so forth. But sometimes when exposed to a certain amount of rejection, invalidation, so forth, the body can start interpreting this on a psychosomatic level. That means it experiences it on the physical level. This is not just a psychosomatic, but the body can still respond to mental health. For instance, as an example, and I'd love to hear from you, Tilted. Have you ever experienced a time where you got so like overwhelmed by stress and multiple stressors in your life that all of a sudden you got very physically ill?
I think a lot of my epilepsy might have, like, episodes could have stemmed from that.
Oh, a very fantastic piece. Once again, can't confirm or denial that. Let's just kind of talk about in a hypothetical situation.
It's a theory that the doctors have thrown around, and they seem to be less. They seemed to be. I mean, the medication has helped a lot too, but in moments of lower stress, they seem to have not kicked up as much.
Yeah, the seizures. A really fantastic point.
But then again, because I'm just kind of relating it all like back to work and also like relationship stuff. It's just when everything's just tanking, I'm overstressed, not being able to sleep, not being able to eat properly, all that crap, which all that stuff affects, my epilepsy in a way. Because, you need to, make sure that machine's running properly. And so if it doesn't get sleep and it's just always in alert mode, it'll send it off to the moon. I'll start breakdancing.
Well, yeah, and I want to come back to the initial question, which I will in a second. I just want to say this real quick. Psychosomatic seizures are very real.
Mm-hmm.
Not only am I saying that just because of stuff that's been studied, but that's just something that Weave and I have been exposed to. We've had clients who, after experiencing a significantly low tolerance to reminders or things that resemble stressful environments, things that resemble those traumatic environments,
mm-hmm.
is that it can send them into a significantly medically resembling seizure. Right. And again, it will look just like this. It will look just the same as if it was just a medical based seizure as well.
Yeah. Did you correct me? Did you say you'd witnessed this at some point?
Yeah, I witnessed this myself because I know for a fact that Weeb and I have seen this, but I don't want to give too much details on here.
Right.
But I'll only speak on behalf of myself that I definitely have seen it. And I could definitely say that the individual was doing well when in less stressful environments, that were safe, that were not resembling these traumatic environments, or when they started getting skills to better manage reminders of this.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden there was a significantly there's just a significant spike in because it had to do with family, that's all I'll say. And so when the family spontaneously visited, boom, there was a seizure, just like that.
Gotcha. So it sounds like it was triggered by an unknown situation, like anxiety, I wasn't planning on having people over. Now it's this huge immediate stressor. That can cause and resemble medical symptoms. It's very possible, and it happens more often than people may even recognize or think. But can you go ahead and can you say the question again that was put in the chat so I can make sure I got all of it? I'll read the whole thing again. So Secret Ducky says, I learned today about rejection sensitive dysphoria, which is kind of alongside the lines of the big T, little t trauma. Can you talk more on that, and what is an effective method of therapy for it?
Okay, once again, just want to make it clear that we'll just say I'll only speak on behalf of things that have helped with this, but I also want to check in with Weeb. Did you want to talk about your experience with people or any clients that kind of experience, or just any kind of modalities that have been helpful to these kind of symptoms?
Yeah. Well, I think two things. Along the lines of the big T, small t trauma, because when they're interweaved together, it becomes what we call complex trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so what, the most helpful, of course, and I know we have worked on this together with, some of our clients, is the
True.
between internal family systems.
Mm-hmm.
and EMDR and or brain spotting. So some of the most advanced, I guess, like the forefront or the front line of the treatment modalities that are out there, and you know, I highly recommend. And I think I find that those are the most useful one. Did I answer your question?
I think that does answer the question. Because I think you're really on the nose about this, because again, there's much more common modalities that can be helpful for the management of how this looks like. However, if we're talking about something that can target in a very big, in a very much more detailed oriented way, I think that, and I agree with Weeb in that participating in like EMDR treatment, which again is a trauma style of treatment, brain spotting, which is again another trauma style of treatment. I will just make it clear that I can speak more on behalf of EMDR rather than brain spotting, because I am not trained in brain spotting. So I can only speak so much on that. And integrating internal family systems, which is another modality we've talked about on this chat before. I think that would be fantastic, like doing IFS work and like EMDR, because again, that's just what I work. That would definitely work, because again, by doing that, as we've said, is that big T and little t traumas, when they start to interweave, becomes like complex trauma, right? It's not just something that's very clear. It's that this kind of like complexity, very similar to like a mixed up like ball of yarn, right? And when you're like there trying to like unravel the yarn, you kind of feel all these feelings of like frustration and kind of wanting to give up, blah blah blah, and you can't see where it ends and where one line begins and so forth. So by doing this, you start to kind of, by participating in these types of modalities, you kind of see it all in a very big way, and in itself, not just like you processing it, but the subconscious then comes in and tries to properly encode trauma in the system, or kind of put it in its own places in our body, in our nervous system, in our brain. Because trauma, when it enters our system, it doesn't get a chance to properly encode, and without that proper like encoding in our system, it starts to create this disconnect. And that's what trauma feels like, is that disconnect in our physical bodies, in our systems, in our relationship with our emotions and so forth, as a result of trauma.
Well said.
Yeah. So again, rejection, the rejection sensitivity dysphoria, that again can be a reflection of that complex PTSD in a very severe way.
Okay, and I kind of wanted to throw my experiences in there, because you know that I don't do well with rejection, so I feel like maybe I fall into this spectrum somewhere.
I could say, like, in a broad way, we could talk about, for you, like, again, I wouldn't diagnose anything.
Well, right.
But we can definitely talk about rejection sensitivity. Like, rejection sensitivity is a very, and dysphoria, the dysphoria version is also very real. And rejection sensitivity is, again, a very common aspect for a plethora of individuals. I feel that, at least in my experience, it's kind of something that kind of gets undermined because of just that people have this stigma related to being sensitive. People, like, I don't know about your experiences, whether Kilted, whether you weep, what's been your experiences of when people say or identify you or someone with the idea of, like, oh, you're sensitive? Like, what is your experience of the stigmas of being sensitive?
Well, if I come from I'll just kind of disclose a bit about myself as a male presenting person, coming from a minority. I identify as an Asian person. That we have this stigma around, of course, the stigma around men's emotional expression versus the emotional expression of a female presenting person. That kind of sense of, I am a crier. And I get called that sensitivity, and that does create a sense of that negative beliefs about your world. And that's something just because I'm a therapist doesn't mean I'm not working through things. I always tell my clients that.
Absolutely.
And I tell them that, yeah, like I do, there are days when I'm like, like I don't know if I'm enough to being a man, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
So,
right.
That sensitivity does, rejection to that sensitivity can create like that less than feeling. I mean, that's for me, and I'm only speaking from me.
Yeah, no, that totally, and I really appreciate you bringing that up, because again, in that cultural way, there's such a perception of sensitivity, right? And there's also a limited idea of sensitivity, I think, because sensitivity just means, at least how I interpret it, I don't want to define it, just in my interpretation, and then I would love to hear from your experiences, Kilted, is that sensitivity means, to me, a low tolerance of. That's what it means. And I think the stigma is that sensitivity means, for some people, like, oh, you can't handle a lot, right? Which in itself true. However, it's the underlining message of that makes you less than capable, less than, and viewing yourself as less than. Whereas I think that it makes sense that people are less tolerable of things. If you grew up in an environment where someone kept on making fun of you being a person that had like you had fat, like I'm gonna say that angle, and you keep on getting joked at and keep getting picked on about it, right? When you get older, throughout life or whatever the case may be, is that when somebody even mentions it, you will start to feel and fear being rejected or being like isolated or being viewed less than. And that just makes sense that you may start to react, because then you feel it so much that you have to learn to protect yourself as a result. Which is bullshit. And like, just straight up, I think it's such asshole, like how much pain that we have to hold in ourselves, and the view that and it skews the view that we see the world and ourselves. It impacts our own shame, our own guilt, and then we may internalize these messages and then project it onto others. It just gets so complex on how it impacts socially too. But anyway, I can keep on going on that. I'm going to bring it back over to you, Kilted. I want to go ahead and ask you, what's been your relationship with, quote, sensitivity, just in your world and your upbringing?
Well, just to kind of add on to what you say, like sensitivity is a, how did you phrase it again?
It's a lower tolerance of.
Yes, and so basically, I think that's like quite the accurate portrayal of that word, especially in like medical terms. I mean, think about it. People have gluten sensitivities, or
right,
sensitivities like cat dander. Like, it's a sensitivity. It just means you can't handle as much, if any. Right. Depends on how extreme it is. And yeah, that sensitivity, I've never really been called oversensitive, because I kind of have like that shell that I've had to develop since I was little. So I'm like a metapod. I just use harden. So, so that's like my skill. But I mean, so I don't really had to, like, people don't really call me sensitive. I mean, unless like they'd get, like, if I get upset at something, not like necessarily crying, but if I get angry or something, they're like, oh, calm down, it was just a joke. I mean, that could be a form of sensitivity. I used to have that problem.
Right. Because again, it doesn't have to be very direct, right?
Right.
And sometimes it's not. That's the other thing. It's sometimes the messages that we received are not so directive. This is what this is. It could have came in such a indirect way, or it's how somebody didn't do as a result that can contribute to your less of tolerance of then, right?
Yeah.
So So in all of this, for rejection sensitivity, and what you're talking about is that, again, if you experience a level of rejection, and let's talk about rejection. Rejection is being separated from, especially opportunities or just attachment connection. Because again, here we come back to it, right?
Yeah, that's my big one.
So it's like, if you, because again, if you are connecting with somebody, right, and somebody is starting to say things to you that your brain, not even consciously that you know, but something your brain has programmed and encoded in your system that said, this looks similar to another time or multiple times when somebody said something like this, or a form of this, or said it in this tone, or approached you in this manner, that afterwards you got separated and your attachment was threatened. Right? That can, especially if you're young, because again, attachment is like, if not one of the first lesson that comes of you coming into this world, even before you come into the world. If you, as a human who is programmed to be a pack animal, receive the message of, we're separating you from the pack, your life will feel threatened. I need connection to make it and stay alive. Yes. The thing is, many people are like, well, I should have known better as a kid. I'm going to tell you that's bullshit. That is such a bullshit. So much, I could feel myself getting upset even saying it, because I've heard it so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's like telling, then if they should have known better as a kid, then, why doesn't every, 12-year-old know freaking level 3 calculus?
Right. A great idea, right?
Because they haven't learned.
They haven't learned. Nonetheless, they didn't even have the physical components developed in their brain to program that.
Yes.
So you are trying to take adult logic and shove it into a child. So whenever I hear this message with my clients, with friends, it doesn't matter who you are in relation to me. When they're like, well, I should have known better. I was like, okay, think about younger you right now as if they're standing in front of you, and you tell them that. Tell them, look at you, and tell them they should have known better. Does it feel good? Does it make sense? Because I'm going to have a common belief, and again, I might just be biased, that it doesn't feel 100% truthful.
Right.
Gosh, I could feel myself getting upset with that statement. I hate that statement so much.
Yeah, Eggy,
especially even as somebody has experienced it. Go ahead.
Eggy's here. She says she wished men being, quote, sensitive was more normalized.
I 100% agree.
Yeah. And then Secret Ducky's got something. Hold on, let's see. Secret Ducky says, would it still be dysphoria if it's not necessarily a physical response like sickness, but you enter all situations assuming rejection and misidentify, quote, normal responses as rejection? Example, the streamer didn't read my message in chat when they usually do, and you're friendly with them typically. Am I oversharing, making them uncomfortable? They don't like me, etc., etc. Is this dysphoria because it's not within the boundaries most neurotypical individuals experience? And you know what? I can relate on that one. There's been a few times where I'll post something in someone's chat and they just scan by it, or other chat members won't acknowledge it because I'm trying to crack a joke, and I feel rejected in a way. It's like, what did... Like, am I... Like, I've actually gotten to points where I'm like, did they block me or something?
Yeah.
I'm like, what happened?
Oh my gosh. First of all, I also just want to check in real quick because weeb is important to me. Do you have any thoughts over there yet about this weeb? He might not be here right now.
He might be taking a poop.
I'm here. I'm still listening. Keep going. I'm still formulating my thoughts.
Okay, I respect that. The line to win something is dysphoria. I think. I think that the line. I don't necessarily think it has to be where it has to be a physical pain. I could be wrong, and I don't mind being wrong. I think that in itself, or it could be still a level of severity of discomfort that significantly challenges your perception of reality. I think that's what I want to go ahead and say, because let's all take a step back of the situation, this hypothetical situation of you posting in the chat and the and whoever's streaming didn't read what you said, right? What you shared, Kilted, in your example was like you went to the point of like, did they block me, right?
Yes.
So we do not have the evidence that something like that has happened, and yet it is having you question your sense of reality to even possibly think that could be a possibility, right?
Right.
The thing is, I think specifically between rejection sensitivity and rejection dysphoria, at least just from what I feel I can comfortably talk about, is when it hits a level of severity of discomfort that it impacts functionality. And functionality being that you are being able to respond to situations aligned to how you would want to or aligned with your values, rather than reacting outside of your values and just continuing to kind of like protecting self in a traumatic or in a trauma response kind of way.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of continue on with one of my experiences. So there's a streamer that I watched, very funny guy, very friendly. He's got a really big following. So, there's times where, I'd throw something in there, and obviously he's got like, a bunch of people talking. You're not going to catch everything. I get it. But I was cracking a joke about a game they were playing, and my sense of humor. And I mean, this guy's chat room is absurd. Okay. I mean, these people come up with the most horrible shit. They're not being mean, but they're very on the edge with their humor also. That's why I kind of felt like I fit in. So when I said something, I cracked a joke, and one of the moderators was like, that was uncalled for. I wasn't calling anybody out. I think I made a joke about like a drunken father beating their kids or something, because they were playing a game, and it was a weird game. And I made a joke about that, and like one of the moderators jumped down my throat. I have not posted a single thing in that chat since. I don't even want to watch that channel anymore, because I feel like I've tainted my presence. I'll like jump in and watch for a little bit. I'm just like, I want to say stuff, but it's like, I feel like I've upset people here, and I don't want to be here anymore.
That definitely makes sense. That could make sense as to why, like, it would impact your ability to, again, right? The rejection sensitivity in that you were just automatically and just naturally responding because the evidence that you were given sounds like, again, just from what I'm hearing, is that you could make comments and jokes like that in this environment.
Yes, I felt like that was a safe space for my humor, because it had gotten through before and people had laughed at it, and then this one, one person came down on me out of the 800 people that are watching. One person came down on me. They happened to be a moderator. Like, they didn't ban me or anything. They're like alcoholism isn't funny. I can't believe you actually said that. That's very shameful. And I just shut down right then. Like, I didn't get in trouble. It's just one person didn't like my comment, and I shut down. Which, and if it wasn't a moderator, I think I probably, it's like, let's say you have your group of friends and you're hanging out and you crack jokes around with them. It's fine. And let's say you crack jokes, but it upsets other people that you don't know. Like, you know me, if I'm walking down the street and I say something and some lady that's walking the other way's like, oh, I can't believe you said that. I'm like, I don't care. I don't know you. And then, all right, see you, combo. You have a good night. Hopefully I'll catch your stream tomorrow playing some Zelda. But if you crack that same joke and it upsets someone in the group, then it really would affect you, or it would affect me if it was someone directly, like, you know, oh my gosh, shit, like, you know, because I don't want to upset this person. The other person, I don't care. I don't know them. They could, you know, it's not my job to please everybody all the time.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I agree with that statement. And so I could definitely hear, like, again, it's the value of the individual in correlation to how you subjectively value them, right? Whether it's conscious or not, right? Because again, like, yeah, I could definitely see that. I would say that this in itself, it can be a form of rejection. Rejection sensitivity, I think, is something that's where you're seeking it out, not consciously, but the system, your brain, even subconsciously, is like looking for the signs to experience rejection, because again, it's experienced such a level of rejection that it's to protect itself, it's keeping hypervigilance of, and to the point where sometimes it could be even though it could have been at one point beneficial, it could start impacting interpersonal relationships. So it's like, even if it's like, hey, let's just say, like, because of like somebody with rejection sensitivity, they could be consciously or subconsciously even seeking it out so that they can protect themselves from rejection, but it's preventing them from being able to maintain relationships as a result of it, or it's impacting their ability to tolerate social settings, right? Because again, the system learned, if I do this is what keep me safe, but it also may even reinforce isolation in itself. Right. The dysphoria, I think, again, is where, if we're looking at it as a spectrum, it's like there's rejection in a very simplified version.
Thanks for the follow, Young Bell.
Rejection sensitivity, and then rejection sensitivity dysphoria, much more on the severe side of the spectrum. Right. And again, where it's like causes physical pain in the body, because once again, when the system is so low in tolerance, and you're experiencing these like big bursts of like anxiety or just overstimulation, again, in the term of overstimulation, it may come up in different forms of like your body hurts, your muscles hurt, your stomach clenches, you have neck tension, you may feel like you want to vomit, you know, you feel like a lot of like just leg pain, something. Right?
I mean, I felt like
that's the lines between all of it, at least in my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I've like clenched up in that situation, you know. I actually had to get up and go for a walk, you know, like just outside really quick, because like just that small little comment just kind of like I was rejected, you know, and it hurt. And you know, because I was like, I thought I was safe here, but you know, I mean, I like try to look back on it. It's like, you know, that's kind of my MO. I always try to find where the boundary is, and as I heard someone say today, you never know where the boundary is unless you step over it a few times. So
I'm gonna check back in with Weeb. Is there any other thoughts you wanted to add to this, Weeb?
Yeah, I want to add the idea of it's okay to feel confused.
Yeah.
Because if you have a chronic trauma of being constantly invalidated, and you know, in a chaotic home environment, for example, it's not uncommon to feel confused. And I feel like boundary, you know, if we, you know, like I liked how Kilted said, you know, like, yeah, sometimes you do have to step over. And I think boundaries is a continuous work, whether or not in your, you know, even if you're in a healthy relationship. So it's
Yeah.
okay, you know, and the idea is that like, you know, we start to learn to identify that like, hey, like what are signs that we know that this person, you know, can provide a healthy and, you know, or quote unquote safe environment for us. And I think, you know, it's okay to, you know, like go through this yourself with your own individual therapy if you wish to do so. Um, and, you know, to kind of be okay with the confusion because
Yeah.
just like, you know, maybe you didn't learn this for your first 18 years of your life. I'm assuming, I don't know if everybody here is, a, you know, adult. And it takes, you know, you know, if you missed 18 years of being able to learn, how long do you think it's going to take you to relearn things?
Uh-huh.
I mean,
So
just
I just want
yes, it's like
to
learning
have
language, you know.
yes.
And the older you get, the more difficult it's going to become because you're less, how do you want to put it, less sponge cakey. You're not going to absorb all them delicious learning juices as easy as you get older.
Yeah, and neuroplasticity is a real thing.
There
Yeah.
you go. I like it's all technical when he says it.
Neuroplasticity is a very real thing, and it's very true because again, I want to jump in with the challenging the concept for anybody that has heard like, oh well, you can't teach old dog new tricks. I think that that's an outdated belief. I think that that as time may go on, it may just take more time to relearn, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not just about learning something new, it's also unlearning a different or a way and a perspective related to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, what you're with boundaries and learning that, you have to understand that you're not going to get boundaries right like all the time because you're a human and humans make mistakes. And what one of my favorite like clinical backgrounds, which is the Gottmans, the Gottman state in all of the research of relationships that says, it's not always about it's not about the impact, it's about the repair, right? And because people are going to make mistakes and people just hurt people. It's not always intentional. It's not always to bring someone down or, you know, like blah, 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 or like, you know, kind of caught like the intention to cause pain. It's that people just unintentionally do that, right? And in boundaries and that repair of relationship is that by teaching people like those lines with someone, it increases the likelihood of people actually learning and getting a chance to relearn, but two, and so which actually is effective in the long run. But two, it also grants opportunity for just humanity and humanism, in my opinion. I think many times people believe or have this concept of like, well, they should just automatically know better. Knowing better is subjective, in my opinion. Because what I know as truth or normal or whatever is not going to look the exact same as somebody else's truth or normal. Right. And it's about understanding that people that mind don't matter and people that matter don't mind. That's a very black and white way of saying it. However, it just gets to the point of what I'm saying.
Right.
Is that a lot of the research of relationships show that for lessons and ways for people to truly and genuinely connect, it takes error. It takes error and learning, right? And repair. And you are going to, and in order to kind of be in those environments, you have to understand that healing takes potentially feeling worse first before the healing actually happens. I say this a lot, especially in therapy world, because many times clients, at least in my experience, come in and they're like, well, I feel worse than when I first got here. I'm like, yeah, because your body was so used to managing and minimizing this pain that you're so used to and accustomed of holding, that now that you're actually sitting here and dealing with it and being with it and relearning your relationship with it, it's gonna feel worse, and then you'll increase a tolerance and a management of it, in which you will subjectively feel better towards. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I was gonna like add something to like the boundary pushing thing, because while you guys were talking, I was kind of like just sitting there thinking about it. If you kind of stand back and look at it, like pushing the boundaries, like at least in my sense, with like my sense of humor and stuff, I mean, it allows me to find the people I connect with, like Eggy, for example. Because, you know, I can say like, you know, the messed up shit that I say, and she thinks it's funny. So I see that and I go, she can be a friend. That is someone that relates to me on a level. So that's why I get along with her so well. And also with, you know, there's been a few people at school that I'm starting to meet more because, you know, hanging out with Eggy, and I crack my jokes and I see other people that are around. They're like, oh, that's funny. I'm like, okay, now I feel safe to talk to them. So, and plus, I also feel like when you push the boundaries, it's a learning experience. So you get to see how far can you go with somebody before it's too much. Then you learn something about that person. You go, okay, don't bring these topics up. So that way you won't upset them again. You know, I mean, it can work in just like conversation. And also, like, if you want to really like put it down this far, like people that go into like the let's say the kinkier world of you know, bedroom time, it's like if you don't push the limit, you know, you're never going to find out what you really like or what your partner likes or whatever.
Well, I hear that. It kind of brings to mind the concept of like boundaries versus rules, and that there's a difference between boundaries versus rules.
Well, if boundaries are already not put in place, you know, let's say you live in the Midwest or something, and you end up walking out into a field, and you're like, oh, let's see what's over here. Unless you see a fence that says don't go over this is my property, you can wander onto somebody's property, and they can be like, hey, get over here. Like, oh, I didn't know, but now you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So unless the boundaries are identified. Like, well,
yeah, because the thing that, I mean, well, I want to take a moment to actually just genuinely ask, you know,
Eggy says it's a learning process.
It is a learning process. It really is. And because again, boundaries are not something that you say once and then that's just it. Like, they're not set in stone. They are not like the announcement to the world as it is set in as it is etched upon the marble wall or whatever the fuck, right? It's that boundaries, like, very plainly are things that you apply to yourself, and rules are what you apply to other people. So boundaries is teaching people the relationship to have with you. Right? But if you say you need to be this way in order for me to be with you or act towards whatever, now you're applying a rule. That's different. I want to pause real quick. Do you have any thoughts so far we are about rules versus boundaries?
No, you're doing good. Keep going.
Just want to make sure. Because again, I say this especially as working in a population of folks that may more commonly, as a result of trauma, may have interpersonal relationship diagnoses and symptoms, is that there's this confusion of, I need you to be a certain way in order for me to be here. That's a rule.
Right.
Which it doesn't mean that rules are bad, right? And it also goes to show, very similar to boundaries, that even if you establish a boundary or establish a rule, It does not mean, nor does it necessarily automatically take away from the value of another person if they are not willing to identify and respect the boundary or respect and manage the rule. So again, each one is going to have a learning curve. People are not just going to get this right from the get-go because, once again, why? In simple terms, they're human. And that's just how it is. I don't know how else to make that clear. I know that in rejection sensitivity, you may be less tolerant of people not getting it right off the bat. And may I say that if that's the case and you continue to reinforce that, it may continue, you may still be just living with the suffrage of feeling that rejection sensitivity. So, which may push people to isolation and so forth, But anyway, I can go into a tangent about that. To come back to my whole point is that, again, regardless of boundaries, regardless of rules, it's going to take a learning curve, which also is going to have to take developing a tolerance of people just making errors, because just because people make errors doesn't mean it's exactly the same as the rejection or the pain or the intentions of those that caused the initial pain of that rejection to begin with, if that makes sense.
Kinda. Can you repeat that one more time so I can absorb it better?
I'm going to try a different angle because I love talking about this because it's my favorite thing to talk about in mental health world, and Weeb knows it, so I'm just going to talk about it.
New angle. Let's go with angle theta.
Hey, we're talking about mentalization. We're talking about...
that was the first thing I was thinking.
What angle?
Like, no, no.
Not my math joke. Damn.
The 45-degree one.
Okay.
That's because we ran that topic all the time.
We ran that topic for probably close to 2 years. But I love mentalization is my favorite concept when it comes to trauma world. Just as a whole, even through all the modalities, I love mentalization. So mentalization has this concept that is called the 90-10 model, right? And without giving a whole spiel about mentalization, because that might take longer, but it's that in the 90-10 model, it talks about how, and I know we've talked about it here in the chat before, but I'm gonna keep saying it, to kind of really reinforce the message.
Go ahead.
That when we experience triggers, right? Or we re-experience the re-exposure to our pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Many times and commonly, the energy and the response patterns that we participate in is responding to the pain or the hurt or the trauma when it initially happened, or when it was in its beginning stages, rather than the situation at hand.
Okay, now let me see if I remember this. So when you have a situation, the 90-10 model states that 10% of your energy is actually taken by the situation yourself, but 90% of your energy is all internal.
Very close.
Somewhat like that.
Very close. It's that if we're talking about, let's just say a situation is taking just energy from us, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's trying to emphasize that many are these situations may only need 10% of our energy, right? Whereas we may be actually giving 90% of our energy because we're responding disproportionately to the situation at hand, because we're not just responding to the situation at hand, we're responding to the unaddressed and pain and trauma that's still living with us, that from the initial multiple exposures to this similar kind of pain.
Gotcha.
Right? So why this is relevant is because, again, rejection sensitivity can be that you're responding to the rejection when it first you may have been exposed to, or a much earlier time, rather than the situation at hand.
Right, and I think I have an example because I've noticed this lately. The one of the owners at my work, when she comes in the front door, we have one of those like a, you know, it's a metal screen door. They're called security doors, but it's just like the metal screen doors. So we have one of those, and every time she comes in, she doesn't understand the concept of closing a door. She likes to just slam it shut. And every time it triggers me because, and I'm sure this goes back to, you know, our father and, you know, my mother, you know, there's shit being thrown, things happen, you know, loud banging noises, which when I hear, it's only like things that are being unnecessarily slammed, you know, I can deal with fireworks, no problem. But when there's like something like that, it just like, I get the initial jump. I'm like, oh, loud noise. But then just like so that's like the 10% of the energy. And then the 90 comes in like, why the fuck do we have to slam the door all the time, every fucking time? Can't we just like, and then I just go off and like, it takes me like 3 minutes to calm down just from her slamming the door. I'm just like, ah, like, cause you know, I'm like, why? You know, and I'm sure that's just, you know, from the, you know, our parents going at it all the damn time and having to grow up around that stupid shit, because other people in the office, it doesn't bother them, you know. They're like, oh, you know, she's here because she shuts the door like that.
Right. I could jump in. I'm still gonna just check in with Weeb. Any thoughts so far of anything this reminds you of?
No, not particularly. I think the only thing I want to add is, you know, kind of, I always use the metaphor of like, you know, that saying of like, you're looking at things from a rose-colored glasses. So it's as if sometimes you're putting on that glasses and you're viewing the world.
Yeah.
And that glasses is not being taken off of when you're trying to look at the current situation.
Oh, such a great metaphor. Metaphors for the win, right? That's such a great one because, again, I feel that in the concept of rose-tinted glasses, right? I want to extend that to like how trauma plays a role in those lenses as well, right? Because again, many people believe that, like, or at least my exposure to folks, they say like, oh, because this happened to me, that means things will never change, right? I don't necessarily see that as truth, right? It's that we're so used to looking, as we're wearing these lenses, that we're looking in every single direction of it looking the same or reinforcing it or subconsciously seeking it to reinforce, that it's hard to challenge the belief that there is different ways to look at things. And it's just very possible. And it can be downright difficult. I want to give that credit. It can be downright difficult. Because again, I had to also, because this is something I adopted from gay sibling trauma, is I didn't like when doors were slammed either, right? And the evidence that shows that this is something that all three of us, being our sibling line, feel, is that if any of us, I have been in the room when all three of us are there, and if somebody slammed the door, again, it can be unintentional. It can be that they just were very, like, it could have been the wind. It could be a multitude of reasons why this door shut hard.
It has been the wind before. I've had the same reaction.
Right, exactly. And all three of us will be like, why are you slamming the door like that? Like, what the fuck is wrong? And we will go. All three of us have gone, right? It has been
like
probably
a group of
the
turkeys.
Right. It is like the most, if and any of the times that we've had divide, this is the most unifying moment when when somebody slams the door, we're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Yeah, we all sound the same. Like, we're all like,
rabble, 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 rabble.
Right? But I also want to say this is something that I've worked on myself a lot because I got really tired of that. I hate that feeling or the feeling I felt when I did that. So I worked on it so much that door slamming doesn't have the same impact on me as it once did. And I know that it still impacts our eldest the same way, right? So, and again, for this example, I'm also going to assume that it was also what you're going through because in the scenario that comes to mind, I think it was a holiday recently, I was standing there and I think that, I don't know who it was, but it doesn't matter for this story, is that somebody just slammed the, his security door because we were at his house.
Right.
And when that happened, at first I heard it and my first thought was like, oh, it's like, okay, the door just shut hard. I think, but we're okay, right? That has taken a lot of therapy and a lot of self-work to get to that place, I will be honest. But I then saw how you both got observably upset by it.
I think I remember who it was. I think our mom walked in and she closed the door heavy. I remember that. And both him and I were just like, what the fuck? Why are you slamming the door?
Right, exactly. And I thought this was very interesting because at one point I would have said the exact same thing. Right?
Right.
But the thing is that I've challenged the relationship of what that means. Right? Because what I was doing, in my 90% was I was preparing to protect myself. I was getting ready to try to find safety because door slamming was associated with lack of safety.
Yes.
It was coming, right? Because door slamming was somebody was angry, somebody was going to reject attachment to me, somebody was going to physically get harmed, somebody was going to get emotionally, mentally, physically harmed, these different realms.
Right.
And my brain had been so exposed to it that it had a lack of tolerance of that. It was like anything that even slightly resembled it, I have to be prepared to protect myself. And the form of protection was either fighting, which again, yelling, right? Fighting, flighting, so running away, creating space with it. Of freezing, so just don't move and it will make this go by faster, or make the threat diminish. Or fawning and me checking, it's like, hey, what's wrong? Are you okay? Like, do you need me to get something? Do you, what can I do? Right? And any way in order to get safety again.
Yeah, so I mean, again, it sounds like our father was a good cause of this, and my mother.
Definitely.
Because she slammed doors all the time when she was pissed, and that always meant bad shit was about to happen.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with Dad. Dad was somebody that projected his anger into the objects of the room.
Yes.
This is that I think this is a very fantastic of just sensitivity. Again, a lack of tolerance of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it also is a good reflection of the 90-10 model. So yeah, they're bringing it all together. Any other thoughts, questions, or anything popping up in the chat?
No, not right now. I did have someone come follow us at one point, young Bell, and apparently they are from my calculus class. So welcome to them if they're still here.
Welcome.
I'm going to build on that reputation that we spoke of earlier.
I want to confirm real quick. Kilted is not big and scary. Actually, I'm going to say this, and I'm going. Well, he's big.
Yeah,
that's true. But he can't help that. He's always been tall. Okay, he's just been a fucking tree of a human. But that doesn't define who he is.
Yes, maybe we did talk about that.
Yeah. It's that but what I will call out, and I'm going to do a little bit of exposure. So Bury your system over there. It's all in good nature, or good intention. He's actually really nice. He's actually really, like, he's trying his goddamn best. Like, and I'm saying this as somebody that's familiar, because I don't want to say I know for sure, because again, there's things that he may or may not have told, and that's okay. That's his business, right? But it's like, compared to everything that this dude has been exposed to, he's doing pretty fucking good. Like, he has been, like, there are people that, like, in exposure to traumatic events, like, are still chronically responding to their, or reacting to their pain, and causing a lot of harm and pain as a result. He's doing the best he fucking can. So, and he's doing I think he's doing a damn good job. So, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. And Eggy says, I told that guy, quote, he may seem scary, but he's a big teddy bear.
yeah, that's, and see, and this is a great example, because since we were people that were allowed space, because I know, and again, I want to speak this on behalf of Eggy, because again, I know who Eggy is that because we didn't allow, or we in the work that we have of ourselves didn't define Kilted's reactions as of self, but were empathetic, compassion, and trying to be understanding, we then got opportunities to see who he was past his pain. And that's the thing that I think it goes uncommon especially in our world right now. The second that they feel pain, people, they kind of retract. They go into their snail shell. They're like, I don't want that, right? But or like, and again, I'm not here to condone being exposed to painful environments, or abusive environments. And there is a line, oh my God, and I might be saying this for Weeb and I, there is a line of something being traumatic and it just being uncomfortable.
Yes. I've seen that so many times. Like, this is a traumatic event. All right, go ahead, Weeb.
I'm agreeing with my friend over here. Like, just because something is doesn't go your way does not make it traumatic.
Yes.
Right. And
that there's a line. And
if I recall what you're saying, the way to tell if something's traumatic or just uncomfortable is if you're dealing with something uncomfortable, well, if it's uncomfortable, okay, let me try to, all right, words.
You got it. You're doing just fine.
If you're
trying your best right now.
If you were to move halfway around the world and then that pain went away, it was uncomfortable. If it still bothers you, even though you're away from all the stuff that triggered it before, then it's traumatic.
I always like that approach to that. I think, like, yeah, in the sense that traumatic means that it is embedded into self and is impacting functionality, because you can move away from discomfort. Okay,
like buying a new mattress.
Like buying a new mattress if you have the funds. Like, if in case your card, unless your card gets declined.
Unless your card gets declined. Your card was declined.
Anyway, but the point being is sorry, that's just a joke. That we get is that just because something's uncomfortable, it does not automatically mean that it is traumatic. Again, the way it sets up itself and stores itself in your system is the lines between discomfort and traumatic. And I say this, and I will say this on behalf of Weeb and I, unless he jumps in and rejects, which is totally okay. I cannot emphasize that how much the term traumatic has been overused and is impacting the ability to differentiate what is actually traumatic and what is not. And it is making jobs like ours difficult. Just wanted to say that.
And valuable.
And to add on that, there is, not to take away that, people are victims of traumatic. There is a line between what we call, as a trauma survivor and the victimization of traumatic events.
Yes.
And it's not an easy word to say, and I just want to point it out there, but this is something that can be uncomfortable and something that needs to be recognized.
Yes. So many yeses, I don't even think I can physically say them. Because man, I'm trying to look at time. I don't have enough time to go down the codependency route. But I will say that there is a line of surviving and healing and obtaining recovery and continuing to, whether consciously or subconsciously, continuing to enable victimization, especially if the system, being your body, your mind, your nervous system, your internal family system, whatever the case may be, learned in their attachment wounds that the only way to be seen or to be heard or to feel connection is to stay a victim. I know there's a more sensitive way to say that, but I'm not on the clock, so I don't have to be. Is that there are people that continue to gain a benefit of the victimization that actually may be it's harmful to them. It's harmful to them because it's not allowing them to actually experience and obtain recovery. It's just having them stay in their pain and stay in the cycle of it over and over again, which is just not fair to the individual. And it downright keeps people in their pain, in treatment centers, in abusive relationships, in just a bunch of different environments much longer than they deserve to be.
And I don't know if I want to I'm not going to say a name, but do you think this is something that your mother dealt with?
I think that my mom definitely was, because again, now I want to make this very clear, and I'm not going to justify my mom in any capacity. One, because I got trauma about that, so no, I ain't doing that. But two, but more so that, like, again, my mom grew up in a single caregiver home with a mother who was an immigrant and came to America with their daughter at a young age. So my mom was 5 when my grandma brought her over, who had to work really hard to keep them both alive, and didn't know the language, right?
Right.
So how did my grandma respond to that? My grandma was physically abusive to my mom. Like, she was downright physically abusive, and that was her foundation and formation of attachment. Is that she became familiar that connection had to include abuse, but she didn't see it as abuse because it was normal.
So that's why she stayed with our father for so long.
She was able to stay with him for so long, but once she started going to therapy, it became harder and harder for her to do that, right?
And then she
finally left, right? So huzzah, the one thing that everyone didn't think, and trust me, even my system is like, and I'm like, I know, I get it. But the thing is, I also want to say is that yes, there can be victimization especially with a situation like my mom, because with my mom is that she may have learned that by getting hurt from our father, because again, prior to the age of when I was 10 years old, my dad was downright dad was physically abusive to my mom. We could also talk about how he was with your mom. No. But he was like with that with my mom too, right? And in that, she would get a lot of attention and care as a result, right? So she may have in her system, in her subconscious or whatever, learned in order to get comforting care and support, it's only when I present this way. Right?
Right.
And again, that is how environments can enable, again, codependent, can enable the reinforcement of this behavior. So how do you actually help? You stop engaging in codependent roles such as like a rescuing role or enabling victimization, and you start to engage in what is called the empowerment roles, which can look like a coach, a creator, or a challenger. The difference being is that these are qualities that can be seen in codependent roles already. It's the matter of A, the direction and intention of energy being put into these roles, and B, how you allow it to personally perceive and impact self. Meaning, a rescuer and a challenger, or a coach can look the same, where they can appear nurturing, caring, empathetic, and so forth. However, if a rescuer bases their value of self on if you notice that they did that for you, or if you dismiss them, or you didn't do exactly what they said, they may still be engaging in codependency, rather than a coach who's like, hey, here are things, here are resources, and whatever you do by the end, that's up to you. I will still have care for you, or I will still have care for you, / it may be harmful for me to stay here, so I may have to create some space. Depending on the situation, because this is all hypothetical.
Yeah, and so that's essentially your whole career in a nutshell. It's like you have your clients and you say, hey, here's the information. Take what you will. Like, you don't have to, like, what you say, like, you don't tell people what to do. You just kind of like, here's some advice. Do with it what you will. I'm not in charge of you, kind of deal.
Oh, man, yes. And may I make it very clear that to be mindful of these qualities of your mental health support as well. I know it can be really difficult, and I just want to be mindful, but I want to make it clear that what I perceive as, again, this is all subjective, so please don't take what you need, leave the rest, is in my expectation of a therapist, and one that is holding empowerment qualities or roles, is that they can provide these qualities and these skills to you, and that does not impact how they view you or impact the therapeutic relationship that they have with you in that professional setting.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Well, it looks like it's about that time. We're going to wrap it up for today. I'd like to thank everybody that stopped by and all the follows that came in. I'd like to thank Asteria for joining me in doing this, and Weeb also for jumping in. It was nice having your input also. It would actually, if you're interested, you're welcome to come by every week, because the more professionals we have, then I guess, you know, it's better to have a triangle than a line, if you know what I mean. When you're trying to look, look at something, you know, this is just, you know, we're going back to trigonometry here. You can just calculate things better.
I do want to personally thank Weeb for joining us today. I very much and highly respect Weeb as a clinician. And I just think that Weeb is a fantastic human. So
Yes.
Thank you for stopping by.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. No
I will
problem.
try to stop by as much as I can. I have told my friend over here I would stop by, so I'm just making up my promises here. So.
All right, well,
Thanks.
every Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Pacific.
Yeah, 6:30 Pacific time. Again, for anyone that's in the chat, However, ways that you can support the chat or the stream is tell your friends, let your friends know, have them join, sit with them in a room, have us muted, or like have a
Not
chat
muted.
together, like unmute, like chat, whatever the case may be, right? But like, you know, spread the word, or put your questions in the chat. If I'm not mistaken, Kilted has some kind of format where you can go ahead and put your questions in Discord, and then and we can bring those into, even if we miss them the 1 week, we can follow up the next week and answer the questions all in due time.
Correct. Alrighty, well, Asteria, Weeb, say goodbye, and then I will close out chat, and then we'll get this thing ended.
Okay, sounds good. Goodbye, chat. Drink water. He said bye. And drink your water. And take care of yourselves. And gosh darn it, be nice to yourself. The world's already kind of ass, so like it's not getting any better just because you're hurting yourself too.
Yes.
So bye, everyone.
All right, bye. We'll see you guys later. Bye. All right, again, thank you, chat, for stopping by. I put it on the TV in front of my roommate. I hope you enjoyed. Yeah, hopefully they had fun. I'd like to say again, sorry that we started late. Had a bit of a computer issue. I'll try to get this thing handled. Sacha Dami, thank you for watching the stream. Much appreciated. Again, we should be back again next week, same time, same place, 6:30 p.m. Pacific time for another Therapy Thursday. Thank you very much for the follow. And as far as my other streams go, I hope to be back Saturday morning, first thing in the morning, to do some Binding of Isaac. I'd like to get one of those in before I get on with my homework for the weekend. So if you're interested in that game, just me playing it, you know, whatever, stop on by. If you're interested in some athletic stuff, Tuesday nights, 6 p.m. Pacific, we do Two Wheel Tuesday, where we jump on the old bike and play a game called Zwift. So if you want to watch me sweat my ass off and almost die, it'd be nice to have some encouragement in here to keep me going. Because while I'm reading chat, I'm less, you know, focused on the pain in my legs and my lungs. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you guys later. If you have any questions, or if you think of anything, feel free to write it down and come back next week. Or again, there is a link below the stream here that'll take you to our Discord, and there is a channel in there that is, it says mental health topics. Feel free to post it in there, and then we will try to get to it next time we come by. And then if you missed that topic and it was discussed, hopefully my recordings are working by then, we will throw it up on YouTube, and you can watch the VOD and hopefully get all your answers through there. So be good to yourself, everybody. Have a wonderful night, a good weekend, rest of your week, all that good stuff. And, you know, do something that makes you happy. Okay, bye, chat. Bye.